Welcome to New to the Street. I'm your host, Dustin Plantle. Joining us today is Eli Mendoza, Chief Growth Officer at Aeries Technology. Eli, welcome to New to the Street.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Well, welcome back to Wall Street. You've been here before.
I have. And, I'm old enough to remember when there were real offices and a lot going on right in and around the exchange, right? So I had to trudge down there for work and for meetings. So was super excited to be back and actually had the chance to be back on Wall Street itself a couple of times recently. So it was pretty cool.
So you come on board, you take this incredible role as the Chief Growth Officer of Aeries. Tell us about Aeries Tech.
Yeah. So Aeries Technology or Aeries Tech is, we're providers of global capability centers for, I'd say, small, medium enterprises, largely those that are private equity owned, right? And the reason for the private equity angle is that, about 13, 14 years ago, I was a partner and COO at Cirrus Capital. And we were looking for a solution for our own portfolio companies that essentially allowed us to get access to resources for innovation, to speed up the work that was getting done around that innovation and to eliminate, let's say, technology debt and to do everything cost effectively. And so we looked at different ways of doing it. We thought, hey, we've been working with a couple of the founding partners at Aeries, right, at the time, on previous deals. And we said, let's put together a model that works, right? That kind of delivers to Cirrus and the portfolio companies what we want. And that's commercially viable for Aeries long term. And so, we put two and two together. We started down the path of acquiring companies and very quickly using Aeries as our value creation lever. And that grew to every portfolio company that we acquired. And every portfolio company that we acquired ultimately benefited from that, right? Cirrus was, I would say, for 5 to 6 years, if not a little bit more, 100% of Aeries revenue. So we kept them very, very occupied. And the fingerprints of that whole, hey, give us resources for innovation, make things go faster from these centers. Help us retain control of the resources so that we know what they're doing at any given point in time and our managers are improving. Give us an aspect transactionally that helps us buy back the center if we want to, because we're in the business of selling companies and maybe the buyer wants to do things differently. And by the way, do all of this extremely cost effectively. And, it worked. It worked for us. And ultimately, as we started to sell companies and Aeries started to form its own relationships with, executives at our portfolio companies that left and went to other PE firms or other companies, they realized that they could grow the business. And they did. And, here we are today, 12, 13 years later with a fully fledged BOT business that adds AI capabilities to the mix in terms of, bringing resources and capacity to the table, as well as consulting, helping people figure out how they should be thinking about global talent, how they should be thinking about technology. And we have the chops to implement. So I think, very credible three-pronged offering that we have.
I have to imagine you're probably getting asked the question quite a bit of how can our company use AI. So talk about that a little bit. These questions that you're getting from founders, CEOs, C-suite regarding artificial intelligence.
hmm So, in our centers, interestingly enough, our centers sometimes are a catalyst for customers wanting to look at how they might get into AI, use it, right, and then inculcate it in the rest of the organization, right? So, again, Aeries centers are multifunctional. So we do technology, we do finance and accounting, we do talent management. Every one of those functions has a people perspective to it, a process perspective to it, and a technology perspective to it, right? It's been pretty standard that companies that move things to a GCC would just move the entirety of the stack as it was defined into that center. But more and more folks are asking for, as you pointed out, hey, how do we use AI, right, to improve, let's say, our outcomes or our cost even? And so then we're challenged in these GCCs to come and relook at the people and the process and the technology, rework it, and then go back to the client to say, hey, this GCC is tech enabled, it's AI enabled, and now, right, to the extent that you would like to, you can bring that back and see if you can't graft that on or follow your own AI strategy. I'm sorry, with within the home office, they say.
Now, are you finding that their expectations are unrealistic or are they very doable?
I think everybody's very inquisitive and I think they're very methodical about how they go about it. I think, when it's outcome based, when it's again, a GCC is please deliver this for me with these people, process, and technologies. It's easy to work backwards and say, what changes would I make to improve that outcome? Because you have an outcome and you could measure against it. And that's the value proposition that having something slightly separate brings to the table, right? So yeah, I think people have very real expectations. If nothing else, what we change and what we deliver in that GCC is only going to get better than what people might have initially signed on for. If not, obviously, we wouldn't implement it and we wouldn't push it out. So it's cautiously optimistic about what AI can bring to the table and the associated reengineering. And if it works, great. They can then expand it to the rest of the company.
And the types of customers you're working with, are they North America? Are they global?
They tend to be, because of the history of Aeries, they tend to be North America focused, um, home offices, I would say. So think New York, Boston, California, Texas, and the like. We have a couple of folks that are in Europe, but for the most part, it has been North America private equity, North America based companies as well.
So would you say that's your ideal customer, private equity, or who do you work with?
Well, we work with the companies. In the end, we work with the companies directly, right? We bring the value proposition to the customer and help them improve their outcomes, right? Where where the private equity firm come aspect of it comes in is in the long history that Aeries had, starting with Cirrus, in terms of relationship building with PE. So obviously, PE has a certain cadence, a certain way of doing things. It's more rigorous. It's enterprise grade, I would say. So that's very validating. So the way to think about it is we work with companies, right? We know what they and their owners are solving for. So it's a very natural fit when we work with those companies, but they can be companies outside of the private equity domain that would still benefit from that kind of rigor and that kind of enterprise grade type of solution.
Now, you've just released some big news. Share it with us.
Yes. Yeah. So we just announced a very meaningful expansion of scope with a client that we recently signed, and it started to onboard earlier this year. And that expansion represents an even more significant transformation of the company's core operations. And Aeries is going to support a major portion of that. Obviously, we're super excited for what it means to the client from a value creation and speed to value perspective. We're also, super excited about what it represents for Aeries, given that it's a vote of confidence in Aeries with a great potential for commercial success, right? It's a very, very forward thinking way of doing things from a client perspective. So that we're excited about. That is in and of itself going to be a significant contributor to a run rate expansion of our revenue over the course of the coming year to the tune of $12 million of run rate revenue.
Well, congratulations on your success and continued success. And I hope next time we're together, you'll join me here inside the New York Stock Exchange.
Yeah, that'd be great. I really appreciate it. And one thing is, I think companies really need to keep an eye out as to how leading firms like our client are accelerating progress and doing it very cost effectively by rethinking how they leverage technology and global talent, right? So this isn't the last major GCC led transformation that we'll see by any stretch of the imagination. So I hope to visit with more good news in the future. And thanks for having me.
And how do we learn more?
Well, we're on uh, every social channel you can imagine. But our website, Aeries, www.aeriestechnology.com, has a nice representation of, our story, our history, our PE credentialization, I'll call it. And you could look through that for the different offerings that I spoke about today. And we're happy to answer any questions. We've got a place on the website that you can enter inquiries into, and we'll be super responsive about it.
Eli, thank you so much for joining us
Thank you.
on to this.
Appreciate it. Thank you.